How does the tech that runs our world really work? We break it down to its fundamental truths. This is First Principles.
You're staring at a progress bar. It's the kind of progress bar that has your entire life attached to it. Your laptop, your faithful companion for the last 5 years, is in the process of dying. Not a dramatic death, no smoke or sparks, just a slow, wheezing, agonizing fade to black. The screen flickers. The fan inside sounds like a tiny engine gasping for its last breath, and you are desperately, frantically trying to copy your files to an external hard drive. There's the folder labeled Photos. Inside, a decade of your life. Birthdays, vacations, the blurry photo of your first pet, the crisp portrait from a graduation. There's the Documents folder, home to your resume, your half-finished novel, tax returns stretching back years. It's all there, a digital ghost of your own history, and it's about to be exorcised. The progress bar inches forward, then stops. The screen flickers one last time, and then nothing. It's gone. All of it. A feeling of pure, cold panic washes over you. It's a uniquely modern kind of grief, the loss of a digital limb. A week later, you unbox a new laptop. It's sleek, fast, and completely empty. A blank slate. You go through the setup process, connect to your Wi-Fi, and sign into your accounts. You open the photo app, expecting that same crushing emptiness. But then, a little spinning wheel appears. And one by one, like memories returning after amnesia, your pictures start to populate the screen. There's the beach trip from 2018. There's that awkward office party. It's all there, every last one. You open your document folder, and there it is, your resume, your novel, your taxes. Everything is exactly as you left it, resurrected from the digital grave. The feeling isn't just relief. It's a quiet sense of wonder. It feels like magic. We don't even question it anymore. We just accept that our data, our most personal and precious digital artifacts, live somewhere. Up there. In the cloud. It's a term we use every single day. Just save it to the cloud. It's syncing with the cloud. We picture it, if we picture it at all, as some kind of ethereal, puffy, white space in the sky. Our data floats, weightless and safe, in a kind of digital heaven, ready to be beamed down to any device we own, whenever we want. But have you ever stopped to wonder how that actually works? What is the cloud? If you had to point to it, where would you point? What are the fundamental rules, the first principles, that allow a photo taken on your phone in a coffee shop in Ohio to instantly appear on your cousin's tablet in Australia? Today, we're opening one of the most ubiquitous and misunderstood black boxes of the modern world. We're going to find out where our data actually lives. Because the most important, most fundamental truth, the very first principle of the cloud, is that it is not a cloud at all. It's a place, a very real, very physical, and utterly astonishing place. And understanding what and where that place is will change the way you look at every single file on your computer forever. The magic of the cloud is its invisibility. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry built on the premise of not being seen, of working so seamlessly that it requires no thought at all. Think about your day so far. Did you check your email? The emails weren't stored on your phone. They were summoned from the cloud. Did you listen to a podcast or a playlist on your commute? The audio wasn't living on your device. It was streamed in real time from the cloud. When you watch a movie tonight, you won't be putting a disc into a player. You'll be tapping a button that tells a server thousands of miles away to send a 50 gigabyte file hurtling through a global network of cables to your television, broken into tiny packets that reassemble themselves into a perfect, high-definition picture just milliseconds before you see it. This seamlessness is a modern miracle. We collaborate on documents with colleagues across the world, all typing in the same file at the same time, our changes appearing on each other's screens instantly. We are having a shared experience inside a document that doesn't exist in the room with any of us. It exists in the cloud. We play video games with staggering photorealistic graphics, competing against players on other continents. Our progress saved automatically, so we can pick up right where we left off, on a different console, in a different house. Our game isn't just a game, it's a persistent world, held together in the cloud. This technology has woven itself into the fabric of our lives by promising us something deeply, fundamentally human: permanence. It promises that our memories, our work, our creations will not be lost. It promises to protect us from that feeling of cold panic in front of a dead laptop. It sells us peace of mind by telling us our digital life is no longer tethered to a fragile physical object that can be dropped or stolen or simply wear out. It has been liberated. It has ascended to the cloud, and we bought it. We all did. The global cloud computing market is expected to be worth over $1 trillion within the next few years. We have collectively decided to entrust the sum total of our digital existence to this thing we can't see or touch. And we've made that decision because the magic is just that good. It's a perfect illusion, an illusion of immateriality. But like any good magic trick, it relies on a breathtaking amount of hidden machinery. To understand why this magical, invisible system was even necessary, we have to rewind the clock. We have to go back to a world before the cloud, a world where data had a very clear and very vulnerable physical address. Not too long ago, if you worked in an office, there was a special room. Sometimes it was just a closet. Sometimes it was a dedicated, climate-controlled space. But it always had a locked door, a tangle of cables, and a persistent humming sound. This was the server room. Inside were racks of computers, not like the ones on your desk, but beige or black boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. These were the servers, and they ran everything. They held all the company's files, its emails, its website. This was the company's digital heart, and it was beating away in a closet down the hall. Your data lived there, on a specific spinning magnetic disk, in a specific machine, in a specific rack, in a specific room, in a specific building. It had a physical, singular address, and this was a massive problem. It was a problem because physical things are fragile. A hard drive could crash, wiping out a whole department's work. A power surge could fry a critical machine. A burst pipe in the ceiling could flood the entire room, taking the whole company offline. A fire, a theft, a simple human error like unplugging the wrong cable. Any of these could be catastrophic. Businesses lived in a state of constant, low-grade anxiety about their data. They spent fortunes on backup systems, on diesel generators, on complex air conditioning units, just to keep that humming room from overheating. The IT department wasn't just a help desk. They were the guardians of the company's memory, the priests of the humming closet. For individuals, it was even worse. Our digital lives were scattered across a collection of physical artifacts. We had shoeboxes full of floppy disks, then spindles of CDs, then a drawer full of USB drives. Our photos lived on the one family computer, a ticking time bomb of a hard drive. We learned the hard way to back up our data, a tedious ritual of copying files from one fragile object to another fragile object, hoping that at least one of them would survive. The world's information, both personal and professional, was shackled to physical locations. It was heavy, vulnerable, and siloed. If you wanted to access a file from the office server, you had to be in the office. If you wanted to see a photo from your home computer, you had to be at home. The problem was immense. How do you make data safe and accessible at the same time? How do you unchain it from a single, vulnerable point of failure? The world needed a new model, and the answer didn't come from a grand plan to invent the cloud. It came, as many great innovations do, as a side effect of something else entirely. It came from a company that was just trying to sell books online. In the early 2000s, Amazon was growing at an explosive rate. To handle the massive, spiky traffic of holiday shopping seasons, they had to build a colossal amount of internal computing infrastructure. Servers, storage, networking, all the stuff you'd find in a server room, but on a planetary scale. For most of the year, however, a huge portion of this incredibly expensive infrastructure sat idle. It was like building a football stadium that was only used for one game a year. Somewhere in the company, a few engineers had a revolutionary thought. What if they could rent out their unused computing power? What if they could treat computing not as a product you buy, but as a utility you pay for, like electricity or water, instead of every company building their own fragile, expensive server closet? What if they could just plug into Amazon's massive, resilient, global system and pay for what they used? In 2006, Amazon Web Services, or AWS, was launched. They weren't selling a product, they were selling access to their own engine. And in doing so, they laid the foundation for the modern cloud. They offered a solution to the fundamental problem of the server in the closet. They were offering to take on that anxiety, to manage the hardware, to worry about the power outages and the burst pipes, so that other companies could just focus on building their software. They were the first to truly commercialize the idea of abstraction, hiding the messy, physical reality behind a simple, clean digital interface. They created the first, and still the largest version, of what we now call the cloud. So let's finally open the box. Let's dispel the metaphor and look at the reality. When you upload a file to the cloud, to Google Drive, or iCloud, or Dropbox, you are not sending it into the ether. You are sending it to a building. A very specific, very large, and very real building. This building is called a data center, and the cloud is, in reality, a global network of these data centers. Forget any image you have of a normal office building. A data center is something else entirely. Picture a colossal, windowless warehouse, often the size of several football fields, planted in a nondescript location, maybe in a rural county in Virginia, or on the outskirts of Dublin, or in the middle of a desert in Arizona. From the outside, it is monumentally boring. It's a giant concrete box, surrounded by layers of high-security fencing, barbed wire, and motion-detecting cameras. There are no signs telling you what's inside. There is no grand lobby. The only clue to the building's purpose is the constant low hum that emanates from it, and the massive electrical substation next to it, the kind that could power a small city, because in many ways it does. If you were to get past the security checkpoints, the man-traps, the biometric scanners, and step inside, you would be hit by two things immediately. First, the noise. A deafening, roaring wind, like standing behind a jet engine. This is the sound of tens of thousands of fans all spinning at once. Second, the temperature. It's cold, because the inside of this building is designed not for humans, but for computers, millions of them. The main space of a data center is called the data hall. It's a vast cavernous room filled with long, neat rows of towering black metal cabinets, stretching farther than you can see. These are the server racks. Each rack is filled from top to bottom with sleek, blade-like computers stacked one on top of another. These are the servers. There are no screens, no keyboards, no mice, just blinking green and blue lights, millions upon millions of them, a galaxy of silent activity. This is where your data lives. Your cloud file isn't floating. It's a set of magnetic charges on a spinning platter, or electrical states, in a solid-state drive inside one of these servers, in one of these racks, in one of these anonymous buildings. This is the physical reality of the cloud. It is not weightless. It has mass. It is not ethereal. It is made of silicon, metal, and plastic. It is not in the sky. It is on the ground, consuming staggering amounts of electricity and generating immense heat that must be constantly battled with an equally immense cooling system. When we say the word cloud, what we are really talking about is this planet-spanning physical infrastructure of data centers, all connected by a web of fiber optic cables laid under our oceans and across our continents. So, the first principle is this: the cloud is not a cloud, it is a ground. It's a factory for data. But this just raises more questions. If my file is just on a computer in a building in Virginia, isn't that just the same as the old server in the closet? Only bigger. Isn't it still vulnerable? What if that building loses power or has a fire? This is where the real genius of the system begins. And it's based on a few simple, powerful ideas. Let's use an analogy to make this clear. Imagine the cloud isn't a network of data centers, but a global network of libraries. And you have a very important book, say your family photo album. The first principle of the cloud is called redundancy. When you go to deposit your book in this global library system, the librarian doesn't just take your one copy and put it on a shelf. The librarian immediately takes your book to a special, high-speed copy machine and makes at least 3 perfect, identical copies. This is the first, most crucial step. There is almost never just one copy of your file. From the moment you hit upload, your data is duplicated. This is the simple, brute force answer to the problem of hardware failure. A single hard drive failing in a data center is not a catastrophe. It's a daily, expected occurrence. When millions of hard drives are spinning 24/7, some of them are going to break. The system is designed with this failure in mind. If the hard drive holding one copy of your photo album dies, there are still other copies, safe and sound. A little robot or a human technician will eventually go and swap out the broken drive, and the system will automatically create a new copy on it to maintain the right number of backups. Redundancy is insurance against fragility. But what if something bigger happens? What if the whole library branch in Virginia burns down? If all 3 copies of your book were in that one library, they'd all be lost. This brings us to the second principle, distribution. The global library system is smart. The librarian doesn't keep all 3 copies of your book in the same building. Instead, they immediately ship those copies to different libraries in completely different parts of the world. One copy might stay in a library in Virginia. A second copy gets sent to a library in Dublin, Ireland, and a third copy gets sent to a library in Singapore. Now your photo album exists simultaneously in 3 different geographic locations, thousands of miles apart. This is called geodistribution, and it's the cloud's insurance policy against disaster. If a hurricane floods the data center on the east coast of the United States, the copies in Europe and Asia are completely unaffected. The system barely registers the loss. Your access to your photos might be routed through a different data center, but you'd likely never even notice. This is why major cloud providers build their data centers in different regions around the globe. They are spreading the risk, ensuring that no single event, no matter how catastrophic, can wipe out user data. This combination of redundancy and distribution is what makes the cloud so resilient. It overcomes the vulnerability of the single server in the closet by multiplying and scattering the data, making it almost impossible to destroy. This leads to a very common misconception. We tend to think of uploading as sending something up and downloading as pulling something down. But in reality, when you access a file from the cloud, your computer isn't screaming a request into the sky. It's sending a signal to a specific physical building, and the system is designed to make that journey as short as possible. This brings us to the third principle, latency. Latency is just a technical term for delay. It's the time it takes for a signal to travel from your computer to the data center and back again. While light traveling through fiber optic cables is incredibly fast, it's not instantaneous. Traveling across continents takes time, measured in milliseconds. It might not seem like much, but in computing, milliseconds are an eternity. If every click, every keystroke in a shared document, every frame of a movie had to travel from New York to Singapore and back, the internet would feel sluggish and unresponsive. To combat latency, the cloud system is clever. When you ask for your photo album, your request doesn't just go out to the void, it goes to the nearest library. If you're in New York, your request will be automatically routed to the data center in Virginia, not the one in Dublin or Singapore. The system knows where you are, and it knows where the closest, fastest copy of your data is. The library in Virginia sends you the book. This is why streaming a movie feels instant. You are being served that data from a server that is likely within a few hundred, or at most a couple thousand miles from you. Companies like Netflix take this to an extreme. They don't just use a few big data centers. They place smaller servers, filled with copies of the most popular movies and shows, directly inside the networks of local internet service providers all over the world. There might be a Netflix server in a building just a few miles from your house. When you press play on the latest blockbuster, you're not pulling it from Hollywood. You're pulling it from down the street. This aggressive focus on minimizing latency is what makes the modern internet feel so fast and fluid. It's an illusion, of course. The speed isn't infinite. The magic is just very, very clever engineering, designed to shorten the physical distance your data has to travel. So, let's recap the real story. There is no cloud. There are just massive hypersecure, power-hungry buildings called data centers, filled with millions of computers. When you upload a file, it is copied multiple times for redundancy. Those copies are then stored in different data centers around the world for distribution, protecting them from disaster. And when you access that file, the system intelligently sends you the copy from the data center that is geographically closest to you to minimize latency. It's not magic. It's a globally distributed, redundant file storage system. It's a logistical masterpiece of physical infrastructure. It's more like a global postal service or a shipping network than a puffy white cloud. The name is perhaps the greatest marketing trick of the 21st century. It brilliantly sold us an idea of effortless, ethereal simplicity, while completely hiding the colossal, complicated, and very, very physical reality. But even this explanation, this peek inside the data center, is still missing a final, crucial piece of the puzzle. It's the secret sauce that makes the whole cloud economy work. It explains how companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft can rent out their massive infrastructure so efficiently to millions of customers, from a single person storing their photos to a massive corporation running its entire business. It is the unseen giant that lives inside every server, the software that makes the hardware truly powerful. It's a concept called virtualization. To understand virtualization, let's go back to our library analogy. Imagine one of those giant library buildings, our data center. Inside, there are thousands of powerful computers, our servers. In the early days, if a company wanted to rent a server to run their website, they would rent an entire physical machine. This was like renting an entire, massive reading room in the library, even if you only needed a small desk and a single chair to read your book. For most of the time, the vast majority of that powerful computer, that giant reading room, would sit empty and unused. It was incredibly inefficient. You had one customer per machine, and that customer was rarely using the machine's full potential. The cost was high, and a lot of power and space was being wasted. Virtualization is the brilliant solution to this problem. It's a layer of software that sits on top of the physical server's hardware. What this software does is essentially chop up one powerful physical computer into dozens, or even hundreds, of smaller, separate, independent virtual computers. Let's go back to the library. Imagine a brilliant architect invents a system of magical, soundproof movable walls. They can take that one enormous reading room, the physical server, and instantly partition it into 100 smaller private study rooms. Each of these little rooms has its own door, its own lights, its own desk. From inside one of these study rooms, you have no idea that the other 99 rooms even exist. It feels to you like you have your own private library. You are completely isolated. This is exactly what virtualization does for a server. It takes one physical machine and uses software to create many virtual machines or containers on it. Each virtual machine acts like a completely separate, independent computer. It has its own operating system, its own memory, its own storage. The company renting that virtual machine has no idea it's sharing the underlying physical hardware with dozens of other companies. This is the core of the cloud business model. Cloud providers aren't renting you a physical box. They are renting you one of these partitioned-off virtual boxes. The implications of this are staggering. It allows for incredible efficiency. Instead of one customer per server, a provider can now serve 100 customers on a single piece of hardware. This drives the cost down dramatically, making computing power accessible to everyone. It also allows for incredible speed and flexibility. Need a new server for a project? In the old days, you'd have to order a physical machine, wait for it to arrive, install it in the rack, and cable it up. It could take weeks. In a virtualized world, you just click a button on a website. The virtualization software automatically carves out a new virtual machine for you on some available hardware in the data center. The whole process takes about 30 seconds. This ability to create and destroy virtual computers on demand is what we call scalability. Imagine your website suddenly becomes very popular. In the old world, your one physical server would get overwhelmed and crash. In the cloud, you can set up rules that say, if my website gets busy, automatically create 10 new virtual copies of my server to handle the load. The system just spins up new virtual machines instantly. When traffic dies down, those virtual machines are automatically destroyed, and you stop paying for them. You only pay for what you use, moment by moment. It's like our library instantly adding more study rooms during final exams week, and then making them disappear once the rush is over. This is the unseen giant. Virtualization is the software engine that makes the physical hardware of the data center a flexible, elastic, and profitable resource. Without it, the cloud as we know it, this on-demand, pay-as-you-go utility, simply wouldn't exist. It's the final layer of abstraction, the ultimate magic trick that hides not just the building, but the very machine your code is running on. It decouples software from hardware, allowing our digital world to be fluid and dynamic, running on a solid foundation of partitioned, shared physical reality. So, we've made the journey. We started with the magical feeling of our data being everywhere and nowhere, floating in an ethereal cloud. We pulled back the curtain and found the reality, a global network of colossal physical data factories. We learned the simple, powerful first principles that make this system work, making multiple copies for redundancy, scattering them across the globe for distribution, and serving them from the nearest location to reduce latency. And finally, we discovered the hidden software engine of virtualization, the clever trick that allows one physical machine to act as 100, making the entire system efficient and scalable. We've replaced the magical explanation with a mechanical one. But in a way, the truth is far more impressive than the myth. The myth of the cloud is passive and effortless. The reality is a story of human ingenuity on a breathtaking scale. It's a story of logistics, of engineering, of physics. It's about laying fiber optic cables across the dark, crushing pressure of the ocean floor. It's about building structures so vast and complex, they are considered a new wonder of the modern world. It's about writing software so clever it can conjure 100 phantom computers out of a single real one. Understanding this matters. It matters because it grounds our increasingly digital lives in the physical world. It reminds us that our data has a footprint. It consumes land. It consumes enormous amounts of electricity. It requires water for cooling. The cloud is not weightless. It is one of the heaviest things we have ever built. By calling it the cloud, we obscure its environmental impact and the immense resources required to keep it running. We abstract away the labor of the thousands of people who build, maintain, and secure these facilities around the clock. The next time you save a file or stream a song or post a photo, maybe take a moment to picture its real journey. Don't picture it floating up. Picture it as a stream of light, a packet of information, shooting through a cable buried under your street, traveling to a massive, windowless, humming building hundreds of miles away. Inside that building, your file is duplicated, its copies flung to other continents through undersea cables, each one finding a home on a spinning disk inside a server, which is itself just one small, virtualized slice of a much larger computer. All of this happens in the blink of an eye. We traded the simple, fragile server in the closet for a complex, resilient, global machine. We demystified the magic only to find a deeper, more profound kind of engineering marvel. Our digital world may feel like it's built on air, but it rests on a foundation of concrete, silicon, and steel.
You've been listening to First Principles. Until next time, stay curious.